My friends, Deadpool and Wolverine has now arrived in theaters, and it was absolutely insane. I've already posted my spoiler-free review here on the channel, and to be honest, that's a hard video to make with a movie like this, just because with other movies, it's easy just to kind of talk about the synopsis and then just talk about the things that I liked and disliked about the film. But with this movie specifically, there was just so much going on, and there are so many cameos and spoilers that were just like at the top of my mind when I made that video. So now I'm here free of restrictions, and there will be full spoilers ahead. Before I start or at any time, make sure you go down to the comments and let me know your favorite cameo from the film or your favorite spoiler from the film. There was so much going on here, and I doubt that I'm going to get to them all. So, with all that being said, and just to kind of summarize my review, I absolutely loved this movie. I think that the minds of Sean Levy and Kevin Feige and Ryan Reynolds, I think everybody kind of just came together and they thought about what MCU fans really want to see. You know, ever since, well, I want to say the first Avengers, probably, that's the first big event film that the MCU had. That's kind of where their success has lied, like throwing a bunch of things together and making it an experience. Not just a movie, not just any movie that you can sit down and watch on your couch. Like, you have to go to the theater for it. And I'm very happy to see this movie now, and to have this movie now, and to have another one of those experiences. Like, I haven't felt like this since No Way Home, and then before that, it was Endgame and Infinity War, and just like, that's what the MCU is all about. I think you can kind of see this laid out a bit in the Rotten Tomatoes score. You see some of the critics analyzing this film in a critical way, being like, it wasn't a perfect movie, but then you see the fan response, and fans are just like, yeah, that was dope. I thought the movie had a lot of heart. I feel like there are layers that we still could have dug into, you know? I'm kind of like itching and scratching for a second film just immediately, because there's so much more underneath the character of Logan. And yes, we've seen a million films with him, but just like, this is a new iteration, and so now I want to know, like, what's happening with him? And same with Deadpool. There was a lot that happened in between Deadpool 2 and Deadpool 3 now that I was a little bit confused about. I feel like they were jumping around, kind of trying to get to that in the first little bit of this film, but I just want to know more about where Wade Wilson is at. There was so much going on in this movie. There were cameos popping up every second, and yes, that is like a thrill ride, and it's amazing, but there was more to this story, and I'm honestly hoping that we somehow, some way get back to that. I do need to talk about some spoilers, and I kind of just want to start at the opening scene. Like, what did you guys think about this opening scene? How he's digging up the grave, he finds Wolverine's skeleton, and then he uses that as a weapon while singing Bye Bye Bye. Like, that was incredible. The dance moves were on point, but just like the imagination to be using Wolverine's like spine, and then also like putting his arms, like the bones of his arms and the adamantium around Deadpool's arms and using the claws. That was so tight, dude. I also really liked, as we dove into the story a little bit more, just getting and going through all of the different Wolverines, and you had like the short guy, comic accurate Wolverine, who was just a tiny little guy. But there were a few more, and then we get to Cavalrine. And I know that after this movie, I mean, Hugh Jackman is still fairly young. I think he could probably do this for many more years, and I don't think that they're going to stray away from him, especially before, like, Secret Wars. I'm sure he's going to be around up until then, but if we do move in a different direction into a mutant saga, what do you guys think about Henry Cavill? Is this kind of just a John Krasinski thing where it's just a fun nod, a fan cast that's really cool to see? Because I absolutely loved it. But like, when you look at him in the costume, it does kind of feel right. I think he would be a really solid selection, and he would be somebody that you're not constantly like criticizing because he's not Hugh Jackman. Henry Cavill has a stature that carries a lot of weight, no pun intended. He's a big guy, but he is a very well-known and respected actor. And so if you went with him versus maybe some just like kind of young dude that's just like rare and trying to be a little Wolverine, I don't know. I might be a little bit more confident moving forward with Henry Cavill as Wolverine in a different movie, but we're definitely going to see. As for that nod, I thought it was beautiful, man. Like, chef's kiss. He turned around and I was like, let's go! Also, somebody that I didn't talk about in my review, I completely spaced it, but I do want to just highlight here, Matthew Macfadyen as Mr. Paradox. Like, dude, Matthew Macfadyen in general, just Succession, Tom, like, he's a phenomenal actor. Mr. Darcy all the way back to Pride and Prejudice. I love this actor, but throwing him in the MCU, having him kind of be this rogue TVA agent who's sort of pulling the strings, I just loved it. It was perfect for him. he got to be a little bit vulgar and kind of stretch the boundaries with his humor. It was great. And also going into the TVA, upon all the rewatches, I cannot wait to go see this movie again because I'm sure there are so many different Easter eggs just laid right in all of that. I was trying my hardest just to look around, but the first time you see a movie, you're just kind of like, you're just involved with the plot. So yeah, again, I can't wait to see it again. There was a lot happening there. I'm not sure how this could tie into Loki. You had B-15 there was a lot of different connections, and we know after the end of season 2 of Loki, like, Loki is potentially pulling some strings here. So like, could he be behind some of this later on in Secret Wars or in a different Avengers film, or maybe even Loki Season 3? I don't think that's going to happen, but could we find out that he had something to do with bringing these two characters together? Because I think bringing Wolverine and Deadpool together is for the good of the multiverse. I don't know, just a grain of salt there. But something else that I did notice was it showed Deadpool dying in Thor's arms on a screen, and Deadpool kind of like makes a big deal about that. He keeps having nightmares about Thor, or like waking up and being like, Thor! And so what does that mean? Like, what do you guys think that means? Does that mean Deadpool is gonna die in a later movie in Thor's arms? Is that foreshadowing the future? Kind of like, you know, Age of Ultron when everybody's seeing their future? I don't know, but it is interesting, and there is a darker tone to that than I think most people realize upon seeing it. It's like, oh damn, did he just see his death? But then we get to the Void, and from here on out, it is just absolutely insane. I kid you not, guys, when Chris Evans showed up, I about lost my mind, and I was like, Captain America, let's freaking go. Turned to the guy next to me and I was like, this is the greatest day of my life. And he was like, get away from me, dude. But I lost my mind thinking that it was Captain America, just like everybody else. And then he says, flame on. And it's funny, after growing up with the Fantastic Four films, like, you know that Chris Evans plays Johnny Storm. Like, this is something that we know, but you just forget about it because of how iconic Captain America is. He also shows up in like red, white, and blue clothes. So you're like, oh, okay, cool. It's freaking Captain America. And then he says, flame on. And it's just, oh my gosh. This was one of the coolest entrances to a character of all time, bar none. Like, it was incredible. Quickly followed by a nice flame off where he just gets owned. And the whole Chris Evans thing pairs so well with the end credit scene. I think obviously maybe some of us expected something really crazy and to have a post-credit scene that set up something for the future, but just having that resolve and seeing Johnny Storm, Chris Evans just giving this performance and saying all this stuff, oh my gosh, it was so perfect, man. But then you have the Sabretooth scene, which was a little short-lived, I might add, but then you have Pyro, you have Colossus, you have Toad, you have Ant-Man's corpse, which is just the base for Cassandra Nova. And after all of these introductions and Deadpool and Wolverine getting away, then we get to the good stuff, man. We get to the really good stuff. Like, I loved the Human Torch, but man, when these four walked in, and I'll include X-23 in this, I about lost my mind because Elektra, Gambit, and Blade are three characters that have had an effect on a lot of us fans. Gambit is somebody who, you know, I think they had that movie confirmed with Channing Tatum. It fell through, and I just loved the meta dialogue with Gambit talking about, like, how he never had the chance to actually play the character. When they're talking about his world, he's like, maybe in my world, I never even had the chance to be a hero. Like, all that dialogue was absolutely insane. But then, you know, seeing Jennifer Garner back as Elektra and Wesley Snipes as freaking Blade, it's just bringing all of these characters together, bringing all of these past movies together, and then also making it accessible for the future in the MCU. You know, we're gonna have Daredevil Born Again. We're probably gonna get possibly the Elektra from that series coming back. We're also gonna have our new Blade. I loved the part with Wesley Snipes where he's like, there can only be one Blade, and Deadpool is just looking at the camera, basically saying like, yeah, you guys are taking so insanely long. There's probably only gonna be one Blade because that movie's never gonna get made. The film was so insanely self-aware, and it did not hold back from throwing punches at the MCU, and that's just something that I loved about it. Admitting their faults, you know what I mean? Because whether you like the movies from the multiversal saga or not, there definitely has been a dip in quality. Like, for one, I liked Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I enjoyed the film, but a lot of people absolutely hated it, and when people bring up their critiques, like, I can see why. For me, it was just Kang. Like, I absolutely loved Kang. He elevated that film so much. But getting back to this movie, they brought the quality back to a standard that is the MCU. You know what I mean? And giving characters like Gambit a chance, you know, after we just saw X-Men 97 and we had Remember It, you know, one of those iconic episodes of all time. We now get to see Channing Tatum as Gambit, and he's doing like this terrible accent. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know, man, the costume looks a little bit wonky, but just how self-aware it was and making fun of him. But then seeing him with the cards in action, all of a sudden you're just rooting for him because you're like, dang, dude, like Channing Tatum is so great with humor, and it played really well to the audience. Everybody in my theater was absolutely loving it, and I can't wait to go again and just see him again. But then there was Daphne Keane as X-23, and she's all grown up now, and so I think the thing about that is her and Logan work really well together. They have great chemistry, but also it's giving this young actress a chance to be a little bit older on screen, and the way that she fit into this group and the way that she is, I think she could easily hold her own in maybe some of the Avengers films, in maybe, you know, Secret Wars or something like that. Like, I would like to see her come back. And so that's certainly a conversation that I think needs to be had. I think she was awesome. And just that entire group then going and facing Cassandra Nova, that entire team, it was really, really fun. But aside from that, it was just kind of all of the Deadpools. You know what I mean? There was like what was his name? The Good Pool or Kind Pool? I kind of forget. But he was hilarious. You had Lady Deadpool walking. I'm pretty sure that was Blake Lively. She never takes off her mask, and I was kind of half expecting her to take off her mask. But the way that she showed up to the premiere looked so similar, with the hair kind of like coming down. I'm pretty sure that they probably just used Blake Lively in that role. If anybody actually looked at the credits after the movie and saw and can confirm that, I'd appreciate that. Just leave me that down in the comments. But yeah, I mean, there was a shot of the Hulk. That's kind of what I'm remembering here. I've only seen it the one time. I loved when Wolverine said F the Avengers, possibly foreshadowing an Avengers versus X-Men film. There's so much to love here, and I hope all of you enjoyed this film. It very clearly was made for the fans. You know, if you didn't enjoy this film, that's totally fine. Everybody has their own opinions. But for me, I had a blast. I'm gonna go see it several more times, and I'll definitely be talking about it even more here on the channel. But like I said in the beginning, please head down in the comments. Let me know all of your thoughts. Let me know your favorite cameos, all that stuff. I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, my friends, hit like, hit subscribe, and keep up the good vibes. Peace!